All right, everyone. Here's classical versus operant conditioning. Let me move my picture over here. All right. So the first thing is classical versus operant. Classical conditioning is going to be involuntary behaviors. Operant conditioning is going to be voluntary. So involuntary behaviors are like sweating, salivating, waiting for this to go away. Your mood, your heart rate, your flinching. We use the example like with like your mood being like you smell your grandma's cookies, and that immediately makes you happy and excited. It makes you salivate. All those things are like behaviors that you can't really decide to do. They just happen naturally. And so, with our examples, was Ivan Pavlov with the dog and the bell. So when they heard the bell ring, then that created salivation. And then operant conditioning is think of like rewards and punishments. It's voluntary behavior. So coming to class on time, pulling a lever like the mouse is doing, turning in your homework, coming home on time so you don't get grounded. So it's like rewards and punishments. Let's talk mainly about classical conditioning. So classical conditioning, we have the unconditioned stimulus, unconditioned response, the conditioned stimulus, and the conditioned response. Remember, conditioned means learned. So if it's conditioned, it's been learned. If it's unconditioned, un means not, so it's not learned. Therefore, the food naturally makes the dog salivate. So the unconditioned stimulus, the thing that causes something, elicits a response, is the food. The food naturally makes us salivate. The response that is unconditioned or not learned is the salivation. At first, if I rang a bell, it would do nothing. And in our classroom experiment, when I said the word Pavlov, you would never react to it. But when I started pairing Pavlov with the spray or the fork, the bell with the food, then you would salivate at the sound of the bell. So if I went bell then gave food, and it needs to have the conditioned stimulus, the previously neutral one that did nothing, the bell, and then gave the food, then when you heard the bell, you would expect the food. And it's not something, again, that we think about. It's involuntary. And so then the bell causes salivating, right? And that was like in our class experiment, when I said the word Pavlov, the person flinched, right? And so flinching is an involuntary behavior. And similar to when we did the lemonade experiment, when I said the word, I forget what we used, Pavlov, then you guys had a little bit of lemonade, then you guys would salivate. Think of doing that now, putting your finger in something and then licking it. Cringy, right? All right. So a couple of vocab words that relate: generalization, discrimination, spontaneous recovery, and extinction. So generalization is when we think of when all types of stimuli elicit the same response. So for example, in classical conditioning of involuntary behaviors, the John Watson little Albert experiment. Remember, they had little white animals playing with the baby, no response. So that means the white animal was neutral. It was not learned. It was not conditioned. But what did scare the kid was when they made a loud bang and then they gave the kid the animal. Well, the loud bang made the baby cry. So they do loud bang, baby cry, loud bang, baby cry. So they clearly knew these things just cause a natural response. So the unconditioned stimuli here is the loud bang. The unconditioned response is the baby crying or being afraid. So then what they would do is they would take the white rat, and they would give it to the baby be fine, and then they would make a loud bang. And so then you had the neutral stimulus followed then by the unconditioned stimulus, the loud bang. And the baby would cry. So then the baby would learn that every time they touched the white rat, they would start crying, they would be afraid. Well, with and I remember that was the little Albert experiment. With generalization, then you were afraid of all white animals. And so like they were afraid of anything white and furry, a beard, a dog, a white furry jacket. So they generalized all stimuli. So think about what you know about the word generalize, right? The other word is discrimination. So think about what you know about the word discrimination, being able to tell the difference between different stimuli. And so a good example of this is you cringe when you hear your phone alarm because it elicits a negative response. You waking up in the morning. You hate waking up. It's uncomfortable. So when you hear your phone alarm at any point, it's going to make you cringe, right? But if you hear a different phone alarm go off, like a friend's that isn't yours, you discriminate between the stimuli. You don't cringe then. So you can tell the difference between the two. Let's say it's a really similar phone alarm and that goes off and it makes you cringe. Well, now you've just generalized that stimuli. All those kind of elicit the same response. So little Albert was not able to discriminate. He was generalizing all white furry things. The last two is extinction and spontaneous recovery. So if I pair bell, food, bell, food, bell, salivate, bell, salivate, bell, salivate, bell, less salivate, bell, no salivate, then the response has become extinct. They learn that the bell no longer equals food. But then if you go bell, food, and then you go bell, then the dog's going to salivate at because they were spontaneously recovering the learning, and now they have that same response. And so again, spontaneous recovery is when extinction occurs, but then you repair the bell and the food, or the conditioned stimulus with the unconditioned stimulus, and then now the dog is going to be salivating. So it's now back. The conditioning has now come back. The last thing, operant conditioning. Remember, you're going to be having reinforcement or punishment. Remember, reinforcement and punishment and positive and negative don't mean good or bad. Reinforcement means behavior increases. Punishment means behavior decreases. Really, I wouldn't focus too much on these, but the positive means you're adding something. Negative means you're taking something away. Positive reinforcement, an example would be you raise your hand in class, you get a point. Negative reinforcement is you participated in class, I'm going to take away your homework, something you don't want. So you're going to continue to participate because I took something away you don't want. Positive punishment is I'm going to give you something that you do not want in order to decrease that behavior. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a detention if you come to class late. So I want that behavior to decrease. I want you to come on time. And so I'm going to give you something you don't want. A negative punishment is I'm going to take away something you do want in order to decrease that behavior. You come home late, so your parents take away your phone. And by taking that away, that's the negative part. And the punishment is decreasing the behavior of coming home late. All right, that's all I have for you guys. Let me know if you have any questions, but miss you.